Let the Kirblog play. You won't get away. Not unless you close the window with it anyway. But I hope you don't do that. I hope you stay. Welcome. I wanted to start off by saying thank you to any and all listeners who are fans of my web series, The Terrain of Magical Expertise, because as of just this past week, the official Tome Facebook page just hit 13,000 likes, which is incredible. We started it about 4 years ago when the show first began, and it's been a long journey and it's been fantastic. And so if you guys, anybody listening out there, or if you're part of if you are people who liked the page, and if you haven't yet, then go do that. But otherwise, if you are, thank you very much for doing that. But anyway, on that note, since the Tome Facebook page has been a very, very big factor in my self-marketing of my animation work, I thought this would be a good time to tackle this question that I've been sitting on for a while from Snickster, asking, do you have any tips or talk back to fellow creators and storytellers like yours truly, trying to get their work out there, what to avoid or common mistakes, etc., etc.? So as a lot of you guys probably know, I started on Newgrounds. A lot of my early stuff from, I would say, 2004 to 2000, let's say like 9 or 10 or so. Like Newgrounds was my main place of putting out my work and marketing myself and doing everything that it is that I do. But that said, it was while it wasn't the greatest platform for marketing. It taught me a lot. And I'll start with that, but also just because I haven't done one of these like advice-centric Kirblogs in a long time. As always, worth repeating that this is just my own personal story of what I've learned and what I've done and what's worked for me. This is not a catch-all, be-all answer as to what to do, because I am certainly not an authority on it whatsoever. For multiple reasons that I'll be going into. But to start off with, so Newgrounds. A lot of people back then, like myself and a lot of the other animators that have kind of since moved on from Newgrounds and mainly have YouTube as their platform now for animation stuff, a lot of us didn't really necessarily know how to market ourselves. We just kind of made stuff and put it out there. The biggest amount of marketing that we had really was the front page of Newgrounds. In that if our stuff was good enough or funny enough or notable enough, it would get on the front page and people would see it. And, they'd get to know who we are a little bit by, if they'd bothered to find out who the person that made it was, which sometimes they would and sometimes they wouldn't. Eventually, they also added a blog feature, which allowed us to post stuff to the front page. I think that you needed to have, like, a certain number of things you'd submitted or, like, a certain amount of views or something to have your pages, your posts put on the front page, I believe, something like that. But either way, yeah, so there was that. And the other thing, too, was because of, this is something, because we had a scoring system for the amount of views and the score that we would get or whatever, for getting the most amount of attention. So often what we would do is wait to submit videos, any kind of cartoons or games or whatever, until midnight, so a new day would start and you would get the maximum amount of time for people to vote, and give you ratings and reviews and views, etc., for a solid day. So that way, because in addition, they would also post, these are the top 5 movies for today. And then if say you were the number 1 of whatever that day was, then that would get attention. And then the best ones of that entire week would get voted for, which was the best of the week. And then from so on and so forth, the best of the month, and the ones that were the best of the month would often get prizes. That was the first time there was something like with any kind of like, oh, cool, I want this, because they used to give out monthly prizes of, I think it was like $250 or something, like to every like monthly winner or whatever, like the top movie. A few of the Parody Rangers, I believe, got some awards like that, because I remember having a few plaques for some of my early stuff, which was really cool, especially when you're a teenager and you're just making stupid cartoons and there's no stakes. The biggest thing that I learned, particularly from my time on Newgrounds, though, in terms of marketing myself now, is I learned about interaction with the community. Particularly in the case of Newgrounds, the people who were watching my cartoons, both who were just, casual viewers and eventually fans, as well as my colleagues, like other animators and other creative people that I knew. The interaction with said people came mainly from 2 places. The reviews, which you could directly respond to, and more so the blog posts where anybody could comment. You could basically have a back and forth conversation of some kind. I guess the kind of double-edged sword, and I mean, it's still kind of the case with YouTube, but I guess in Newgrounds, it was a matter of like, typically people would take more time to write out of like a bigger comment because it was meant to be a review and not just a comment, which could be anything more or less. But comments just became kind of all catch-all, so I understand why YouTube went that route. But either way, the kind of double-edged sword of Newgrounds is that people were very blunt, sometimes to the point of just being not very nice, because they would voice their opinion. If they didn't like something, then they would let you know, and not only by their actual opinion of whatever it was, but also by the rating, or lack thereof that they would give you. So there was that, and then also with the blog posts, that was more so a case of where like people who were following your work that were fans of your stuff, were people that were wanting to know about when new stuff was going to come out and expressing their excitement and etc. And then and everything in between too. Sometimes there would be people on there who, and vice versa. In the case of reviews, people would be like, "Hey, you did a really good job on this particular part here," or "Oh, I'm pissed off because of this thing, and I'm going to let you know about it in the comments here." For better or worse, that was my first kind of exposure to that. And I think also, I mean, this is a little bit off topic, but it's still relevant. The Newgrounds was a good training ground for me. Good. You can close the window now. Anyway, it was a good training ground for me in the sense of it was the harshest I had ever really seen people. I mean, because I was picked on as a kid. Oh no, boohoo, whatever. Join the fucking club. But Newgrounds as well, like people were very personal about shit sometimes. So because of that, I had that as a firm grounding of like, okay, I'm prepared for anything. So it's funny because now when I hear people, other animators and creators and YouTube people now being like, oh, I can't read the comments, dude, it hurts too much. I'm just like, whatever. Come on, like you should know that this is how it goes. It's the fucking internet. It's a double-edged sword. It's the greatest creation ever, and yet it's the worst thing ever, all at the same time. But either way, yeah. So I digress. My point is that taught me a lot about interaction with a community, and more so specifically the people who were giving enough of a shit to be invested into the stuff that I was producing. Especially because by the time, I mean, Parody Rangers was still pretty basic entertainment of just like, oh, it's funny, hope you like it, share with your friends or whatever. But, it was beginning to build a story and people were remembering who the characters were and they were getting attached to some stuff of it and, the Nintendo collabs and all that. So then when I finally started working on something that had a continuing story, which was the case for Tome, and I mean, TTA, I had a little bit of this experience, but it was very, very small. It was pretty much allocated to like comments on DeviantArt uploads, or at best, I think like, or there was a forum that I went to called the Fallout Shelter. Anybody remember that? Anybody? Probably not. But it was a forum thread on the Fallout Shelter where, great name too, by the way, where fans would react to the newest episodes and stuff like that. But yeah, either way, so there was a little bit of that, but it was very, very minimal. More of what I got out of that was from my Newgrounds days. But anyway, carrying on. So when I started working on Tome in the summer of 2011, beginning the pre-production, I finally started a Facebook page for the show specifically. Now, a lot of you guys notice I don't have a likable Facebook page for myself as Chris Kerberfer, Niosi, Flash animator, creator, writer, voice actor, whatever the fuck. I don't have that because I would rather people focus specifically on the content I'm making and not necessarily myself. Now, this is also why this is part of don't necessarily follow everything that I'm doing, because in some ways, a lot of what I'm doing isn't necessarily the norm, and it isn't necessarily going to get you the most amount of recognition. If I were smarter, I mean, not only would I be, say, in terms of self-marketing, I'm talking about specifically, not only would I be marketing myself more as me, like this is a creation by Chris Niosi, lol, I would also be doing stuff that would probably be garnering more views, like more video game parodies or more voice actings or whatever. But that's a whole nother subject, which I've probably already gone into of that. I want to do something that I am personally enthusiastic about, and I want to do a long-form story with characters that you can invest yourself into. So that said, that is a more niche audience that requires a lot more finessing and a lot more specific types of attention. Now, on that same note, the Tome Facebook page became the central hub for updates and general things about what was going on with the show. And what I have tried to do and what I continue to do is I try to have an update on the Tome Facebook page just about every single day. Sometimes I can't. Sometimes there's a couple days or maybe just a day in between where I don't have anything to update with. Thankfully, because I'm currently, at the time that I'm putting this Kirblog out, I'm producing 4 videos every single week, and I update every time I have a new video, whether it's tone related or not. Thankfully, 2 of the ones of the 4 that I'm producing every week now are tone related because it's all the behind the scenes stuff. I can post that on the page and make a little blurb about it and be like, hey, here's a new thing, you can go check it out, etc. And that, drives more traffic to it, and that gets people, engaged and, keeps their attention and everything. The other things, too, is that on the off days, I can do stuff like just general updates about things. I can ask people questions about, hey, what is your favorite this and that. I used to do polls for like, oh, what's your favorite character? What's your favorite episode? What's your favorite whatever, And sometimes I would update with fan art, which I tried to space out as much as I could. There was so much that came out of the last episode that recently came out that I had to give like way bigger chunks with it, but yeah. So I try to make sure that I would update it every single day, so that way they'd be seeing the Tome page on their feed every day with just something to remind them of it and to keep them engaged and to keep them interested, because that was important for having the whole thing work more or less. And it worked really well because, even though it's not in like the million, I mean, then again, none of my stuff is in the millions, and that's perfectly fine. And because on that same note, since my stuff is it's still a niche kind of audience, it's still a niche kind of thing because, again, most stuff on the internet that does really well is very short, very quick, very funny, very viral. Tome is not along those lines. And there's very, very, very few shows like Tome on the internet that do all of that well to begin with. In terms of like having a shared universe, like a continuing story with characters that you can memorize and get invested into, you know what I mean? So interacting directly with the audience who is invested into it, because and not only the Facebook page, but on my Twitter, on the Tome Tumblr tag, which is Terrain of Magical Expertise, directly interacting with people through those kind of situations, like, reblogging and retweeting artwork, or, answering questions directly from your ask box or stuff tweeted at you, private messages sent on Facebook, or even just responding to comments and liking comments. Like it's stuff like that keeps people engaged, and it keeps them coming back, and it keeps them, interested in what it is that you're doing in the first place. Because, the problem is, like, people are fickle and they drop off and they lose attention really fast and they grow out of stuff sometimes, and it happens. And, it sucks, but it's the way it is. And, I'm sure all of us probably can relate to that because we've all been there with different things that we like and then don't like anymore, or, what have you. So in addition to that, this was for the first few years I was mainly focusing on stuff with Newgrounds. And then after I finished season 1 and I decided that I wanted to, focus more on YouTube, which is where all of the, attention was kind of going in terms of content creation then. I hooked up with Frederator. They basically taught me how to play the YouTube game more or less. That was what led to doing Kirblogs in the first place, is because I wanted to give people more content in between waiting for new episodes of Tome, because there wasn't much to grab people by that point. And the growth that I got in that time was exponential compared to what I had before. And it really, really helped get me out there a lot more by having consistent updates. And, now here we are, over 100, however many Kirblogs we have by this point. And which is fantastic, and people like them separately from the show as well, which is great, And on that same note, when I started putting more emphasis on my YouTube channel, I realized, okay, not everybody is necessarily going to be following me on Twitter or Tumblr or the Facebook page or whatever. I can link to it and make sure that people are aware of it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're all going to be there. So a lot of it has to be directly in the videos itself. Which is the reason why I started also doing the little update videos, whether they would be with the little Tome graphics or if it was just something that I film of myself or whatever, because that's right there. It's easily accessible. It's right in your face. You can see and hear everything that's important enough. It's usually for something that like is important or long term or something upcoming that is worth talking about. So it's a lot of stuff like that. But I try to keep those pretty scarce as well, as to not get too like obnoxious with them. But they're still meant for, okay, like I got to keep people aware and on top of things so that they know what's going on and that they know what's what to look out for and what to remember, etc. And they've been a tremendous help as well. So in summation, basically the biggest thing that it breaks down to, like the absolute thing you can break it down to, is you need to keep people updated, both in content and in information. I try to get as much stuff out there on a consistent basis as I possibly can. Not only because it makes me money, and it's been my lifeblood over the last couple of years mainly, but also because it allows for people to be interested and give a shit about what it is that you're doing in the first place. So I'm always trying to get as much stuff out there as I can, and not in like a quantity over quality way necessarily. Obviously I designed a lot of this stuff in a way that is easy to produce, so that I can get a lot of it out in a timely fashion. But that also doesn't necessarily translate to like, oh, I don't care, I'll just put stuff out and they'll just eat it up. Because that when you're doing that, then you're doing something wrong, because you need to actually give a shit about what it is that you're doing, more or less. Especially if it's your own content, because if you don't care, it's like there's no fucking point in the first place. But either way, yeah. And then even now, often what I do, which I'm gonna put out here at the end of this, is sometimes I will respond to comments as well if people have direct questions or things that I agree with or things that I can extrapolate on. Sometimes I'll respond to stuff. Not always, because the light downside to this, and I feel this is worth putting out here as well, for better or worse. Sometimes you also you in the general sense, have to be careful of how far you go. And I've done a whole separate Kirblog about like interacting with your fan base and stuff and your viewers and everything. But sometimes if it goes a little too far, they'll take it too far. Like I'll just go on a limb here. Sometimes when I get really, really nice emails and notes and messages on different places who are from people that are like, hey, like your stuff really changed my life and I really enjoyed it and thank you so much for producing it. And sometimes I'll be like, oh, that's really sweet of you. Thank you so much for your kind words and everything. And then sometimes they'll take that as, oh, you're my friend now. I'm going to keep talking to you over and over and over and expect you to respond, and then get angry at you when you won't. It's like, I don't really have and this is going to sound really privileged and stupid, I'm sorry, but it's like I don't have time for that, and sometimes I barely even have enough time to, talk with and check in with as many of my actual friends that I know and have history with, as much as I'd like to. So it's like I don't always have time to do that, which is why don't take personally. If I or anybody that you follow doesn't respond to a comment or an email or a tweet or whatever, for me, it's completely sporadic, to be totally honest. It's like if I happen to see, and what also sucks is for some reason YouTube will have, I don't know why, somebody please fucking explain this to me. When somebody will post a comment, it always just so happens to be when somebody has a question and I want to answer it, and they don't allow me to respond to it. Like, just the reply button doesn't fucking exist. I have no idea why. Maybe it's something to do with Google Plus. I have no idea, but it aggravates me. So I apologize for that. But so there's a lot of that. That's a lot to take in. But it's all stuff that I'm passionate about. It all ties back to what I said actually on the page yesterday, on the Facebook page, is that, I'm appreciative of the fact that anybody gives a shit about my work and allows me to continue doing what it is that I love by supporting me. So I really try to show that appreciation as much as I can by producing consistent content, by keeping people updated. It's all stemming from a place of appreciation. It's not just about like, well, got to market myself to the young kids and got to fucking, you make the money and all that. It's part of it. The necessary evil of, yes, I have to make a living, and yes, I need to, grow my brand and take care of what it is that I do so people care. But it's the fact that there are people that care makes me very appreciative and drives me to want to do that in the first place. So I know that was a lot. Hopefully that wasn't too convoluted. Hopefully that helped at all to any and all creative people who wanted to learn anything from that. Again, I am not an authority on this. There are lots of other people you can learn this type of stuff from, but that's just my perspective. I hope it helped at all. So in the comments below, post any thoughts or further things to add. I don't know if any creators or anybody else that might happen to listen to this or whatever are curious. Let me know in the comments, and also if you have any other questions regarding that, or if you have any questions and ideas for Kirblog topics in the future, you can post a comment about that, or hit me up on Twitter, Tumblr, Facebook, whatever you feel like, and you may in fact inspire the next Kirblog topic. So thanks a lot. Thanks for listening. I'll catch you all next time. Hope I helped. Maybe. Bleh.